You arrived here with nothing. So like many of my clients listen to this are starting from a complete different industry. So they're also starting from nothing. How did you get the articles, the opportunities? Because I know you reached out to me.
Yeah.
So are you doing a lot of the outreach for the opportunities to come?
No, we don't do any outreach for like media opportunities.
Okay.
We tend to let them come to us, or we have people that would be like, have you had referrals, right? Referrals are a massive part of how we do it. So normally it's about just documenting the story. So can you talk about what you do and how can I make people aware of what I do and aware of my value? And I wholeheartedly believe in podcasting, as you spoke about earlier. I don't think you can go wrong with podcasting, especially if you're time poor, as a lot of us are. It's really worth thinking about the efficiency of content. Where can you give the most value? Well, it's probably face-to-face. I'm not a massive fan of online podcasting. I think in face-to-face is much better.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Kelly Lundberg podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Lundberg, and my goal is to inspire a minimum of 5 people a day to take action, to do something different, and just for your personal brand to stand out. Maybe this episode is going to inspire you. I sit down and speak to Freddie, who's all about storytelling, but from storytelling, how do you humanize your personal brand and the communication? How do you create content? And we talk a lot about LinkedIn, how much we love it, and easy things you could be doing to improve your personal brand profile. Let's dive into the episode. Great to have you here, Freddie. Welcome to the Kelly Lundberg podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. We connected via LinkedIn.
We did, yeah.
How did that come about? Did you see my post or did you see something else?
I may have seen your post. I may have seen the podcast. I can't remember what it was, but it's an incredible platform, isn't it? So it would have been something where there's been a crossover.
I love it. Well, we'll touch on different platforms because I think you've got a few that you like and content generation. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Freddie. I'm the founder of The Healthy Entrepreneur. So we really look at helping entrepreneurs and founders to tell the story and show the value that they've actually got. And we lean massively into LinkedIn and podcasting, which I'm sure we'll get into a bit more. We believe that, everyone has got value to share and some people struggle more than others to get it out there in this ever-changing environment that is business and creatorpreneurship.
Yeah, the healthy entrepreneur. So what's the story behind that?
The story behind the healthy entrepreneur is that I think a lot of people get a bit stuck in the weeds when they're looking at business. Even people that we've met and worked with who've made a lot of money, they're still a little bit stuck with why. And you get into this circle of either you're at one end of the spectrum where you are looking just to grow anything because you're maybe in a bit of scarcity and you're not sure how to grow a business, or you've made money, but you're still not happy and you're not looking after yourself perhaps. And we've had friends and family who have really struggled in that circle of burnout in the entrepreneurship space. And so for me, it was like, if we're going to set something up which helps and works and has touch points with a lot of entrepreneurs, both with social but within the company as well, how can we instill values in the company title that makes people think differently about course? So a lot of clients, and you'll know this as well, they come to you and they want to share their value, and they will work their fingers to the bone to just give value as much as they can. But value is a spectrum as well, right? People think they're giving value, but part of the value is the hook, or is the part that lets someone listen. Like if no one's actually going to listen to the part, there's no point in giving that value. So we're big on, making sure people are understanding their positioning. I think the fundamental thing that most people get wrong is their positioning. So you can be 1 degree off either side. And if you use like a pilot analogy, if you are 1 degree off, you're going to be hundreds of miles away from the airport you want to land at. And so, there's so many examples from different people, but it's really about how can you align with your values? So we often start with how much money do you want to make? Yeah. What is your dream outcome? And then let's think about how we can get there, position you in the market, but without just completely burning out or becoming known for something completely irrelevant and therefore wasting all your time and money on the wrong thing, which I think a lot of us have been through. Yeah. You become known for the wrong thing, which is so frustrating.
Yeah, or I think there's that. And one of the questions I get a lot is, how do you then transition into something new? So you've maybe been in corporate, but my corporate hat doesn't match my new life as an entrepreneur. But I believe it does, and it's how do you bring it all in? What's your take on kind of transitioning and doing something completely different?
I think it's a great point. Our mentor's a guy called Daniel Priestley. So he's the godfather of personal branding, and people always ask him questions about, if I make a personal brand, I won't be able to sell my company, or it'll be worth less because I'm completely ingrained in that brand. And it's a similar thing to what you're saying there, where actually your personal brand needs to be around you and your values. Again, like we could have named the company, we often use the term become recognized.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen you talk about you don't want to be a celebrity.
Yeah.
You just want to be known for what you do. I think people get tangled up in the weeds here around what that actually means. And so, you know, for us, it's about understanding if you just align your values with where you're going and your overarching ethos or philosophy in life, you can completely untangle yourself from a brand. And if anything, it benefits you, because when you go to sell a company or however it might work in your case, there's so many ways out of it. And I think if you're thinking that big, that's great. But often we just need to look at the next step. And the next step to build a business and get more clients is usually, in this day and age, build trust, build familiarity. So I don't think it's something we should worry about at all.
Yeah.
But we do need to make sure the positioning.
The other piece that I always find people really struggle with is, okay, they maybe have an idea in terms of their positioning, but they're rubbish at telling people what it is they do.
Yes. Yeah, massively. And one of the main things people do is they just talk about, you know, a good example is in podcasting, right? It's always going to come on to podcasting. We both love podcasting. And I'm sure you've had guests who they talk about exactly what you've asked them, which I think is the same with positioning pieces. Because if I was an electrician, for example, and you asked me a question about becoming an electrician, and I genuinely talked to you about electrics, you didn't mean that. You didn't mean for me to talk about that. You meant for me to talk about my story into it. You wanted a bit of inspiration or education. And I think that is also where people go wrong in terms of positioning. They think we actually want to know about the genuine thing, and therefore they give that value, but that value can be directionally incorrect as well. So they might be positioned as the best person in the world, but then they start talking about electrics, for example, and you're like, what's going on? There's no value to actually help me.
I remember seeing a post, and I think this just touches on that perfectly. And it was a story, and it was about two guys who'd set up a car detailing business in Birmingham. Now, I'm never going to be their client. I don't need my car detailed. I do not live in Birmingham. Like, none of that was of interest. But their story was brilliant in terms of how they'd gone into, hey, we started here and this is what we did. Then we went here. And it was, I don't know, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, but it was so organically created. It wasn't perfectly polished, but it was brilliant. And then I ended up looking at their page, and that's how I found out that they were from Birmingham. I've got no need. I'm not necessarily going to follow, but their content.
But you start planning your trip to Birmingham to try and use the car wash, probably, or car detailing.
But I just thought it was really well done. And I think that's what you're meaning in that element of going, how do we make it sort of relatable in the car detailing?
Exactly. So a really interesting sort of note to that. I spoke to 150 entrepreneurs and investors last week from the UK, and I gave the example of Dragon's Den, right? So there's two examples here. So this is UK program for your audience, Shark Tank and other places in the world. They have invested millions and millions of pounds over 17, 18, 20 series, But now we've got Stephen Bartlett on there. So one of the most famous faces in the world in terms of business. He's the one that gets most of the deals on the table. He gets the cream of the crop. Even though he hasn't got the best portfolio in terms of investing, he's not the richest, he hasn't got the biggest team compared to the other people on the program. But they go for him because he feels the most familiar and the most relevant now. So you look at any investor, and realistically, if you've got a business, you're an investor because you're investing in people, in assets, whatever it is. So you're going to get you're going to get the cream of the crop. The other part of that is one of the biggest investments in recent years is a company called Perfect Head in the UK, which is the UK's fastest growing and biggest matcha brand. And the reason I bring that up is because, sure, people like matcha, whatever. But it is the story, the compelling story that has made that company go to where it is. And the compelling story was that these three founders, and one of them, they're three founders from college, one of the founders couldn't digest or had an intolerance to caffeine. But when they were at university, they really needed caffeine or they needed some sort of energy to get you through your studying. And so she found matcha. But she realized that matcha is not targeted towards energy or studying and revision performance. So they created this matcha-based performance drink, and it's marketed around that. But the compelling story in the marketing is around her and them solving, as a friendship group, her issue. So they can lean into that in all of their marketing. So she can go and talk about business or marketing, whatever, but she was known and she's positioned as the person that solved a problem for herself and then looked out to the market and said, I can help other people with this intolerance. And now it's one of the biggest brands in the drinks market in the UK.
Hearing these stories as well, but very interesting about the Stephen Bartlett in terms of he is the one that invests the most, but I feel he's also the riskiest. Maybe he's the younger that's like, I'm happy I'm in this space, where you've got Deborah Meaden and who else is on it?
Peter Jones, that guy.
They've done loads.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd go with him. I'd go Peter Jones every time if I was on there, for sure. We've got a client at the minute who is on Dragon's Den, and he was like, I'm going Stephen Bartlett. And I was like, just think first about
longevity.
Yeah, please go for the one who's probably made the most money or what's got the best investment portfolio. But it's the power, isn't it? He feels like he knows Stephen the most. We probably all do, because we've seen his content more than anyone else. We've seen him talk or whatever. Really powerful.
So how did you get into your journey then? How did you become a healthy entrepreneur?
Well, I'm on my journey of becoming one, I always say. But so I went to university. Both my parents are in the police force, so I had no entrepreneurship around me. It was all
my
just...
dad's also in the police
force.
Oh,
no way.
Yeah.
So, they both worked as just PCs their entire lives. So it's very much shift work and just doing a job, government job, absolutely fine. In my mind, I thought I have to go to university. There was nothing else to do. I went to university, did a degree in business management. I then realised when I was doing that, everyone's doing this. So I went and did a semester in France, trying to make myself a bit different. Finished uni and I thought I need to do a master's. So I did a master's in economics, which then got me a job as an analyst in a hospitality company. So I was just performance analysing all these businesses, looking at how we could stand out, how we could make more money. But I was at the same time like, this is weird. I tried to travel through uni. I almost worked full time through uni to afford it.
Yeah.
And I knew that, although my parents had done it and they'd show me the way, I just thought there's no point in this. It's like such a bizarre way of life to me that we just get a job and do the same thing. And so the hospitality company, I was looking for other jobs, and I managed to really luckily get a job through storytelling actually at the world's largest digital publisher, which happens to be based in Bath in the UK, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
But they've got 5,000 staff. They do 500 million monthly unique sessions,
wow.
billions and billions of dollars a year. And I managed to get a job by standing out through story, really. So you had to deliver a covering letter. Everyone had master's degrees. Everyone had degrees. Everyone had experience in analysis. So I wrote a letter, and the question they asked you to answer was, why is this your dream job? And I thought to myself, I'm not going to answer that. The job was a product manager. So you're going to work in e-commerce, in tech, in copywriting, running teams of editors to try and get these unique sessions, people to come and see you on the internet. And so I wrote a story about why I wanted to be an astronaut, and why becoming an astronaut was the coolest thing in the world to me, and why it was the most important part of my life was to get the skills to become an astronaut, but how a lot of the skills would link to this job. And so I got through the paper shift, and I went through 4 or 5 rounds of interviewing, and I managed to get the job, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of lockdown, first day of lockdown.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So you're thinking, I'm going to be fired. Day one, fired on day one. But I wasn't. And I managed to, to grow a team there. We were there whilst the business did really, really well. And so I learned so much there for 3 years. And I literally could not have learned more from a team that was not much older than me. They're all in their early 30s, but we were doing £300,000 profit a day. It's just a team of 60, just us.
Wow.
And then the rest of the company, 4,500 other people were making up the other part of the profit. But for us, it was incredible. And so we were rewarded for that. And it was incredible. But in 2022, we've been headhunted by other media teams, and we're looking around at what I should be doing, where should I move. And I was in the car. My fiance was driving, and I was going to become a trustee of a charity in the UK, which is also based here, which I know your guest, Mark LaRousse, is one of our patrons.
Yeah.
And
now the connection's all coming together.
There you go.
Yeah, because Mark's been on and Daniel's been on the podcast.
Exactly. So both of those are patrons of the charity that I'm a trustee of.
Brilliant.
And so we were on the way in this car. My fiance was driving us. We came out of our village just outside Bath in the UK, and a car came around the corner and hit us head on. And so we were thrown upside down into a ditch, and there was smoke and blood and screaming.
Wow.
It was horrible, but we survived.
Yeah.
And I dragged her out of the car, and there was a doctor on scene, and ambulance, fire, helicopters, all sorts of stuff. And we had 2 weeks off work with sort of, no massive injuries, bruising and whatever, physio, whatever, but nothing life-changing apart from our mindset.
I was going to say, it was
the mindset.
Trauma.
It was the mindset that changed. And so, we went back to our house a couple of days later, and everything was as we'd left it. I told my boss, I'm just going on a lunch break. I'm going to go do this. I'll be back. Everything was as we'd left it. And thank God we hadn't taken our a 1-year-old Labrador with us. We left him there. And someone looked after him, by the way. He wasn't it. Anyway, so in that time, we decided we were going to go back to our traveling days. We'd love traveling at uni, and we were going to do something with our lives.
Yeah.
And 2 months later, we had a small property business we were developing, sold that, sold the house, quit our jobs, and we'd landed in Dubai.
Wow.
With no one. We didn't know anyone here. We didn't have anything we were going to try and sell. We just knew we were going to document our journey and get into what we knew we could do. Like we knew we had skills from these big companies. We knew if we had become consultants or whatever, we could make it work. So we landed here, and straight away I was networking, all the in-person networking you can do here in Dubai, whether it works or not. I was at all of them, all day long. Started the podcast, which went to #1 in 9 countries on the day of release. I was on national TV within 6 months, radio, media, columns every month. So it didn't take us long to go from 0 to we were being known.
Yeah.
And in that time, we were able to fill our pipeline with people going, can you just help? We don't know how you're going to help us yet, but can you help us? And the rest is history, really. We went from there to just having these clients around the world who have all sort of come to us based on our story, but utilizing, luckily, the skills that we already knew we had and we were doing for big companies, for medium-sized companies, I guess.
So 2 things I want to come off that.
Go ahead.
Why Dubai?
Good question. So we had 2 options because my fiance, whose name's Antonia, she's got two brothers. She's one of 4, but she's got 2 brothers. They're half Danish. So one brother went to Copenhagen to start a company. One came to Dubai to start a company. We looked at that and said, okay, where are you going to have a better lifestyle? Europe versus Dubai, cold versus hot, tax versus no tax. Wasn't that hard? Yeah.
There's a clear winner there.
I absolutely love Europe and Copenhagen. I'm sure we'll end up there someday. But when you're going to start a business, I don't think there's a better incubator in the world than Dubai. It's literally like you survive or you get burnt. It's quite a hard place to do business, but if you can get off the ground, and I always use that analogy of, when they try and pull wrecks off the bottom of the ocean, there's so much effort to get it off the mud bottom, but once you get it up, you can pull it through the water quite easily. And that's how I think it's a good analogy of Dubai, right?
No one's explained it like that. So then the other piece, which I know people listening to this will be like, can you go back into more detail of the journey of going, okay, so you arrived here with nothing. So like many of my clients listen to this are starting from a complete different industry. So they're also starting from nothing.
Yeah.
What and how did you get the articles, the opportunities? Because I know you reached out to me.
Yeah.
So are you doing a lot of the outreach for the opportunities to come to start, or how did that work?
No, we don't do any outreach for like media opportunities.
Okay.
We tend to let them come to us, or we have people that would be like, have you had referrals, right? Referrals are a massive part of how we do it. So normally it's about just documenting the story. So can you talk about what you do? And it's quite common that you use some sort of funnel. So if you're talking about content, you'd use top of funnel. So like awareness. How can I make people aware of what I do and aware of my value? And I wholeheartedly believe in podcasting, as you spoke about earlier. I don't think you can go wrong with podcasting, especially if you're time poor, as a lot of us are. It's really worth thinking about the efficiency of content. Where can you give the most value? Well, it's probably face-to-face. I'm not a massive fan of online podcasting. I think in face-to-face is much better. Which is why
interestingly, our other guest that I had on today said exactly the same. He says no to any in-person, no to any Zoom.
Exactly. And so we do exactly the same. Whether people want to come on or we want to go on to other ones, if it's online, we're just like, well, we'll come to you at some point. Just have you on the guest list or something. Telling the story, using that awareness piece, and then just going down the funnel towards, middle of funnel, which is consideration. So if you know me, we want to get know, like, and trust, right? So if you know me, maybe you like me, hopefully I can then give you some consideration as to why I can help you. So that would be things like I've learned in the last week or so. People say to us all the time, I don't know how to write LinkedIn articles. I don't know what I would say.
People find LinkedIn way more challenging than
I know.
I'm like, it's such a fabulous platform, but they go, but I don't know how to write it.
Exactly.
But you write on Instagram, oh yeah, I know, but I can't put it on LinkedIn.
And they write their emails, they write their ad copy, they write their scripts, but they can't do LinkedIn because there's people are scared that their old boss is going to find them or whatever. And people are they're only going to bring you down until they're going to ask how you did it. That's the way I think about stuff. Like we failed very publicly for our podcast. I could go through that in a bit, but like we started with nothing and had a lot of episodes where we were just terrible until we got to the point where we could have millionaires and billionaires on and they wanted to come on. And the difference was that we were happy to fail in public. So anyway, you go through the awareness piece, the consideration, try and show people your value. And if you have trouble thinking about content, I just think about what happened last week. What happened in your team meeting? Why were your clients upset? Why were they happy? What podcast did you go on? Like, what have you learned from all these interactions? And so we went through those motions. We went through top of funnel, middle of funnel for a long time. Then once you've got the credibility and you've got testimonials or whatever, I'd start looking at the conversion to the bottom of the funnel, like do something, join our newsletter, listen to our podcast, come to an event, do you know, just something where someone has to actually do something. And so that's how I would always start. I'd always start with just start. It sounds stupid, but just talk about yourself, because although you think people don't care, they really do. And if you think you've had a boring life, you really haven't. And then you can start adding in the bits that are just valuable. And if you haven't got that value, then just go and learn something. Like, you haven't got to have this massive encyclopedia of knowledge. You can just learn stuff. And a lot of us are learning all the time. And like we touched on earlier, right, the biggest issue that we see is consistency. Positioning's up there where you're known for the wrong thing, but consistency is where everyone goes wrong. And so I said to you, only the disciplined are free. If you discipline yourself in the fact that I'm going to do half an hour on LinkedIn a day, if you do that for 100 days, like classic Alex Hormozy, if you do that for 100 days, you will make money. Like, unless you're doing something fundamentally wrong, you will 100% make money. And if it's still not working, then there's probably some very obvious things that you're doing wrong.
100 days, is that the
Hormozy?
Well, he talks about that.
He says that you need to do 100 minutes of content a day, or 100 outreach a day, or $100 on ads a day. If you haven't got 100 grand a year in a business, that's what you need to be doing. Then you can ask questions once you've done that.
I like that, because I'd heard of the 100 minutes, but I hadn't heard of the $100 and the 100 outreach.
Yeah, do all of that for 100 days. And then if you haven't made money, or you haven't got your money back, then you can start asking questions. But probably
but you need the tests on it.
Yeah.
Because I did have one client that said to me, but I did LinkedIn or did this for a month. And I was like, it's not long enough. I don't think it's long enough. No. Let's touch on the LinkedIn, because I love it as a platform. We talked about how people are a little bit reluctant. What tips have you got for kind of telling your story on that? So
telling your story is part of it. But I would say the first place I would look at is your landing page or your profile. You can tell the best stories in the world, but all anyone's going to do is click your name and land on your profile. And if that doesn't look good, what's the point?
What are some of the mistakes you see people do then?
On their banner, you've got no idea what they do. They've put a nice picture of themselves up there and you have no idea what they do. Or there's only a few seconds to prove your worth. Not worth, your interest perhaps is a better way of saying it. So you want to have the profile set up. So you want to have the banner set up nicely. One of the classic mistakes is they set it up for desktop, that's where they're working. On mobile, where most of us look at people, it's all blocked.
Or the picture face is covering their writing or whatever.
Or, in their sort of tagline, it doesn't explain what they do. They might just say, I'm a CEO. Brilliant. No idea what you're talking about. You want to know in that line what you do, for who and why. And then maybe you put podcast host or best-selling author, whatever it might be. That's a classic mistake. Having no logo for your business, so therefore no landing page for your business. Mistake. These are all really basic. And then your about section. That's where you can actually tell your full story. Someone's actually in there because they're looking for more information on you. Fill that out, make it a story, make it fun, format the post correctly, control the white space. This is all stuff we used to do at Future to go from like getting 25% conversion rate to like 35. And it's small things like just formatting the posts right, or using a word check rather than like buy. People are happy to check prices. They're happy to check stuff. No one wants buy my offer. They want check the price. These small nuances. And then a really big one is the featured section.
People don't use that enough.
Don't use it. You want to have value in there, so you could have a lead magnet or something in there to actually give value, but also a way for them to come closer to you, like something that a podcast, a newsletter, whatever it might be. And then telling your story, like I said, 5 posts a week minimum. There's no point in doing less. And then find a time that works for you when you know everyone's going to be posting. Engage with other people. LinkedIn is about community. If you go on LinkedIn's actual LinkedIn page, they'll talk about community, fostering community, engaging, supporting. It's very different to Instagram, which is about sharing, which is what the CEO says on Instagram, who also we should be following, because he'll tell you every day what Instagram are trying to build. And so
share versus engage.
So it's all about engaging on LinkedIn, telling your story. So you want you really want a resonating post. So that's like an F shape in terms of your content. Control the white space. So like, don't make it look like blocks of text. Like you open a book and it's a block and you just don't want to read it.
That's tough.
It's really tough. And then obviously a hook. obviously a picture. These are things people don't bother doing.
Yeah.
And then to tell your story, it's just, is it awareness? Is it consideration? Is it conversion? Is it worth $50? If it's not worth $50, don't press post. And so people think, okay, well, is my post worth $50? How do I measure that in terms of a framework? If you paid a mentor $2,000 for an hour, they're not going to give you a massive bullet point list of stuff. They're going to give you little tidbits, bits of information that they've learned, which is super valuable. And so that's what we mean. Is it worth $50 to someone? So it really should give value enough that I can go away and implement, because the implementers are the ones that are going to win this game in the end.
That's great tips. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what's next for you in business growth?
In business growth, 2025 will be really, really good for us. So we're doing a bit of a podcast tour.
Yeah.
We're going to take the podcast to some different countries.
Brilliant.
We've got some really, really cool guests lined up. And then in terms of the business, it's just about emulating what you've done, right? I think a lot of people, they get to a certain point and then they move. And we're like, no, we'll stay in the same vein and we'll do the same thing and we'll get better at it so that we're the best that we can be. And people get to a certain point and they think there's shiny object syndrome, isn't it?
Yes,
and I think people look at other stuff. Exactly. So for us, it's just, the team's growing. So how can we keep them all super engaged? Like LinkedIn's one of the best places for attracting top talent as well. So how can you keep them all really engaged, and how can we deliver for the clients? And whenever they say we want something new, like a new feature or a new way to report the data, how can we make it even better every time? Over deliver. That's like our mantra. Over deliver every single opportunity.
I love it. I'm going to leave it on that piece. Over deliver. Thank you so much. It was great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's brilliant.
Wondering which platform is best for building your personal brand on? LinkedIn is the place to be. Many of my clients, as well as people that I meet at events, are often really nervous and don't know where to start when it comes to getting out content and building relationships on this fantastic social media platform. And that's exactly why I created How to Grow Your Personal Brand on LinkedIn. I actually got that name from Instagram when I asked my followers which one did they think was the best. That was the one they chose. This course is designed to help you share content that's personal and professional, that connects with your personal brand values, but more than that, just how can you grow long-lasting relationships on a platform with people all over the world. For my listeners, or for those that are watching this, I'm offering this 9-step module, which is really easy to complete in the next couple of hours for just $47. Click the link below, purchase it straight away, and then come and say hi on LinkedIn. I'd love to see what you've updated.